Welcome back, guys. Week 2 of the Outta Bounds podcast, hosted by Nate and Osk. Last week we had a bit of a long episode. This week we're hoping to keep it a little shorter for you guys, but who knows how that's going to go. There's a lot on the agenda right now.
Yeah, I mean, last week we had a lot to catch up on, too.
Yeah, a lot of stuff.
First episode, a lot had happened in the past couple months, so, we had a lot of football more than anything.
A lot of football for
we're going to switch it up today.
Stuff. Yeah.
We're going to switch it up today.
Don't worry.
It's March.
It is March, baby. The greatest month in sports. And that is for one reason and one reason only.
Got the tourney, baby.
The tourney. The tourney is back. 68 teams.
64 teams. No, there's
68 because there's the play-ins, yeah.
God.
All fighting for a shot to get that national chip, college basketball.
It is Wednesday, March 3rd, and it's a great day to be from this great state of Illinois.
Oh,
and I'm going to tell you why.
Man.
Because the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign is going to win the national championship this year.
That's a hot take. I mean, not a hot take, but that is how I know you feel.
They're sitting at 4.
They're sitting at 4 after beating the 2 seed last night.
Yeah, they were sitting at 4 as of Monday.
Yeah.
Tuesday rolls around. Big game against Michigan. This is number 2 versus number 4. Michigan are
one of the biggest games of the year in college basketball.
Michigan are 18-1, now 18-2, mind you. And Illinois, without Ayo Dosunmu, Wooden Award finalist, by the way. One of Illinois' 2.
Yes.
They got smacked.
They smacked Michigan. And it wasn't even like a question. It was almost 20 points.
Yeah, it was just, they were just looking so good. I mean, Illinois have been one of those teams that's great on the road this year. And just for the entire game, it just seemed like they were just locking Michigan down. They were, forcing them into just like some like ISO buckets. Not a lot of cutting, not a lot of moving, as we're used to seeing with this Michigan team.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it could have been maybe a fluke game. None of Michigan's players played very well.
Right.
But a big statement game from Illinois to get the dub without their best player.
And I'll be honest here, I actually didn't watch the game. I kept up on scores, though, and it seemed like the whole game was sort of Illinois control. Like, it was close at the start, but Illinois just started running away with it and never looked back. So it wasn't really a question that Illinois was the better team last night. And that is a huge step in the direction of a number 1 seed, which obviously is the goal for anyone going into the March Madness bracket.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be really interesting to see how teams in the Big Ten, their success in the Big Ten translate to their success in the tourney this year. Because
that's what I wanted to talk about, actually.
The Big Ten this year has been an absolute
the Big Ten,
bloodbath.
The Big Ten is the best basketball conference in the nation.
In the country this year.
Yes, it is the deepest. Like, you have a couple which are like, the best team in the country is in that conference, like you might say, like Gonzaga. But like the Big Ten, like 1 through 5, I think, are all like solid tourney guys.
I mean, if you look at, for example, Ohio State, overall they're 18-7.
Yeah,
they're the number 7 team in the country this week.
Yes,
they're like 5th or 6th in the Big Ten.
Yeah,
at 12.
That's exactly what I mean.
Because you can be, they're a great team, but when you have to play Michigan all the time, when you have to play U of I, when you have to play Wisconsin, Purdue even is like 3rd in the Big
Purdue
Ten
is good. Purdue is good.
The Big Ten is just so deep this year.
Yeah, I agree.
It's
they're the best team or the best conference in college basketball. And I'm intrigued, like you said, to see how Big Ten teams do, because all season they have been just going up against like the best of the best. And when it comes time to like actually play like consistent games against the best of the best in the tourney, we might see a lot of Big Ten in the Sweet 16, the Elite 8. And I like them all. There's one team I don't like, but that's just because I'm biased and we know who that is.
It's Iowa.
It's Iowa. I don't like Iowa.
A lot of standout teams, though. Teams that haven't been good in the past couple years and are just, moved up in those rankings. One of those teams, West Virginia.
Yes.
They almost beat Baylor last night.
Almost.
It was close.
Yeah. And there are obviously those teams like Baylor, like Gonzaga, who are always going to be like the best teams. Like, they're always going to be a 1 or 2 seed. But
Well, Baylor has also been kind of a standout. This is their first.
Yeah, Baylor's had like a really good year this year.
This is their first conference. Good. I think it's their first conference title in like 60 years or something like that.
Don't they play in the same conference as Kansas?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean.
Yeah, but also
that has always been one of the like. I don't know. They've both been really good basketball.
It's also because of those teams that have been kind of dynasties for the past like decade or so have just fallen off this year.
Yes.
You have Kansas, who kind of sucks.
Yeah, they're like a 15 or something right now, 13.
Somewhere in the teens. Yeah, you have Duke, Kentucky, UNC, who all three for a while just were unranked.
Yeah, UNC at least now isn't like projections to make like a 9 seed. I think like they're going to be like mid. Duke is not even in the conversation.
It's crazy.
Duke's not going to make the tournament.
Yeah, you have Alabama at number 8. They haven't really been that good since Colin Sexton was there.
Yeah, no, I actually have that in my notes right here. I said, is Bama a basketball school? We know they're a football school. They just won the Natty, but are they a basketball school too?
I don't think I'm ready to call them a basketball school.
It's scary. Are they just a year-round powerhouse?
Is Florida State a basketball school?
CeCe Walker, if you're watching this, roll Tide.
Is Florida State a basketball school?
I mean,
they're 11th in the country right now, 14-4.
They're good. They are. I think they've always been sort of an upper mid tier in both sports, both football and basketball. Like obviously, they've had really good seasons in football. They've also had really good seasons in basketball, but those were standout seasons, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if I'd call them a basketball school as much as just like an all-around like competitive athletic school. I think they're really set in both.
Mm-hmm. Shout out Patrick Williams.
I thought
he was going to be
Bulls sitting like in the playoff picture right now in the East somehow.
Yeah, Florida State in the past couple of years, they just had a couple like just random forwards get drafted.
Yeah,
they had that one team that didn't they make the Elite Eight a couple years back? They had like 3 of their guys get drafted. But yeah, I mean they're looking like they're trying to build a program and be good for year in year out. Arkansas number 12, Creighton 14. San Diego State 19.
Yeah.
Loyola Chicago might be back this year for another Cinderella
run. I know they're in the picture. I don't know much about them. I can't say that I've studied them that much, but they just might have their next Cinderella story.
That Final Four run is crazy.
That was sick.
That was so crazy. They just hit like random game winners.
Almost
in every game in the tourney, they're hitting clutch shots.
Almost all of our viewership is from the Chicagoland area. So you just know how hype it was around here, just like knowing that Loyola Chicago is like going crazy.
It's so weird, but it's gonna be crazy to see because there's gonna be a lot of teams that haven't been in the tourney the past couple years are gonna make the tourney this year, especially come selection day when. Those big teams that have been good in the past, like your Kentuckys, your Duke and stuff. Like, are they even going to?
Are they good enough for a 15 seed? Like, do they throw in that bone?
Yeah,
I don't know.
And then obviously you're going to have. It's going to be a big year for the Big Ten because obviously the regular season every team was looking good, but once you get to the tourney, it's a completely different game.
It's a completely different.
game. Kentucky could make. All they got to do is make the tourney, and they're looking dangerous because they're Kentucky.
Yep, exactly. So, That's how I feel about Villanova. Villanova is a very good team this year. I know firsthand they've walloped Marquette twice. But them versus Creighton is obviously one of like the biggest rivalry that I have been paying attention to because they're both Big East teams. Mm-hmm. And they both play each other Saturday, which is their last game of the regular season. And I think no matter what happens, both of those teams are going to be going into the tournament like with a huge momentum shift. I think whoever wins is just going to like ride that high, and they're going to have a good run. And I also think whoever loses is going to turn it around. Hot take, I think Villanova and Creighton are both going to go pretty far in the tournament. Villanova, at least, they have tournament experience, and I'm giving them that credit. Don't give me that face when I say Villanova has tournament experience. They have one of the greatest national championship wins of all time.
Creighton, though.
Creighton is like what, like the 13 seed?
14 right now.
Okay.
17-6.
Yeah.
But they play in the Big East.
Okay.
And the Big East is just Villanova.
And Xavier. Xavier's like a 10 seed right now.
Xavier?
Yes, Xavier.
They're not ranked.
Correct. They're like a 10 seed right now in the tourney.
Yeah, but like, who was a 10 seed last year?
I don't know. I'm just saying. I think
You have like Liberty University out there somewhere and Colgate.
Okay. I'm just saying. I think both of them are going to have a good run in the tournament.
All right.
You can hate me, but if we're talking about, like you said, teams that in the past have been good and should we expect to see them in the tournament, I don't know why you're taking Villanova out of that question. Villanova is, since the 2010s, like one of the most consistent tournament teams.
They have been one of those dynasty schools.
Exactly.
There. But this year, it's going to be a Big Ten school this year.
It is going to be a Big Ten tourney this year, and I don't disagree with that. But they're not going to be the entire Final Four. They're not going to be the entire Elite Eight.
I mean, doesn't matter. Completely unbiased, Illinois is going to win the Natty this year. That's all I'm going to say.
Completely unbiased
take from the U of I student is that U of I is going to take it all this year.
Completely unbiased take from the Marquette student.
They're not making the tourney.
No, Marquette's not making the tourney. I was never going to say that. Holy, no. I would never dream of saying something like that. But completely unbiased take is I have to respect Villanova this year.
Okay.
And that's that.
Moving on from March, what else do we got on the docket for today?
Spring training has started. Baseball season is back.
Another great reason that today is a great day in the state of Illinois. For half of Illinois, at least, about half.
The Chicago White Sox are playing baseball, and so are the Chicago Cubs.
But more importantly,
completely unbiased, both of them are playing baseball.
The Chicago White Sox are playing baseball again.
I have a couple numbers here that I wanted to pull up because obviously I'm here for both the Sox and Cubs fans on viewership, so I have info for both of them.
We're not biased, but
about why this is going to be an exciting year. CBS Sports, they were the only source that I could find that had done complete stuff for both teams. There were some that had been in the process, so they didn't get to some of the divisions yet. But CBS Sports ranked the White Sox offense at a B and the Cubs at a D-, which tough looks. But they also put the Cubs at 17 overall in the league with Sox at 7, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Sox at 7.
Sox at 7, I understand. There's a huge debate about who's in the 2 through 10 spot, basically. But
you can make an argument for a lot of teams there.
But I do want to talk about their offseason because the White Sox, as we know, are trying to win now. They had a couple big moves, the signing of Liam Hendricks, Adam Eaton, Lance Lynn.
Almost Trevor Bauer.
Almost Trevor Bauer.
Almost, but not really almost.
They lost James McCann. They lost Colomé, so I understand the B there. But the Cubs at a D- is interesting to me. Because
I just don't think they're as good anymore.
Because I just don't know where the Cubs are trying to go with their season. Because on one hand, they are the team that signed Jock Peterson. They're the team that signed Jake Arrieta. It looks like they're sort of trying to make a push to see if they can get that division one last time. On the other hand, they're the team that lost Kyle Schwarber, and more importantly, the team that traded away Yu Darvish, one of the greatest pitchers in the league.
After 1 year, too, right?
No, he's been there a few years, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't really know that
either way, it's just interesting because they're making some moves that are they're tanking. They're getting rid of their best guy. They're sort of resetting, getting prospects and stuff. But then, on the other hand, they were signing, top outfielders in Jock Peterson. They were signing a new pitcher to give them depth in Jake Arrieta. So the D- is sort of appropriate to me because any team who trades away Yu Darvish has a losing offseason. I don't care what else you do. You have a losing offseason.
Yeah, I just don't think. I think I said it today in a different scenario, but some teams got it and some teams don't.
Yep.
I think this year the Sox are going to be one of those teams that got it, and the Cubs are going to be one of those teams that they just don't have it.
I am trying to remain as unbiased as possible, so I will say, I don't know if the Sox will win. I'm not going to say the Sox are favorites to win the World Series.
No, they're not. It's clearly
I will admit
Dodgers.
that. It's clear. I have it here. I have my list of favorites, good shot, in playoff teams but not contenders. My favorites are Dodgers, Mets, and Padres. The National League is sort of stacked right now.
Very stacked.
Very stacked. Those three teams, I think one of those three will win the World Series if I had to put money down on it. But it might have a good shot. The teams that might win their respective championship series and put up a fight in the World Series. I have White Sox, Yankees, Braves, and Twins. So that's AL heavy. I mean, Braves not, but the other three. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, I think AL is gonna have a lot of those, like solid playoff teams, and like you said, the NL's got just those contenders,
just like the teams that could win.
The teams that they're not gonna drop a lot of games in general.
Yeah.
The Padres just got better.
I'm scared of the Padres. Like, I am terrified. Obviously, the Dodgers, because they got Trevor Bauer and stuff. But, like, everyone's talking about the Trevor Bauer signing. The Padres are dirty. We were just talking about the Cubs. The Padres are the team that got you Darvish. They have Tatis. They already have a deep pitching core.
And they just locked down Tatis. Not just, but, like, a while ago. They locked down Tatis for, 12 years?
Oh, my gosh.
He's making, Pat Mahomes money?
Yeah, it's insane.
I think obviously, Mahomes has a Super Bowl and stuff, but I think Tatis's career arc so far is kind of following that of a Pat Mahomes,
I agree.
or just one of those young guys that just comes in and immediately starts tearing up the league.
Right.
He's like everyone knows him now.
And in baseball, there's so much more longevity than in football, just because there's so much less of a physical game. Mm-hmm. It's insane.
I think that speaks more on how crazy it is that Mahomes got that contract. Yeah. Because no one in football gets
$500 million.
No one in football gets a contract like
$500
that.
million.
No one in football can dream of a contract like that.
Yeah, I agree.
It's just something that we haven't seen before, and that is similar to a baseball contract.
Yeah,
I think that the NFL is kind of adopting the ideas of the two other major leagues, which is baseball and basketball, because one, you have longer contracts now. Mm-hmm. You're locking down your young players immediately once you get a little glimpse of how good they're going to be. And then also they're taking a little bit from the NBA, in which players have a little more say in I want to be traded now, or I want to sign with this team. You have a lot of more team ups, I guess,
right?
That can make teams contenders right away. On the Bucks, they just they got Brady, and then all of a sudden everyone's taking pay cuts to try to sign there.
Try to be on
they got Fournette, they got Gronk, they got a bunch of other guys. But yeah, it's crazy to see contracts like that flying around in any sport.
Yeah,
because if you're the player, you're signing away a good percentage of your life.
Yeah,
to play with a team like that, and that's crazy.
You're also signing for hundreds of millions of dollars.
So much money.
So much money.
It's insane. But congrats to Tatis, Mahomes, all those guys.
Yeah.
They kind of earned it, they're crazy.
Yeah. Another underrated aspect of what I was talking about, my World Series favorites, is Dodgers and Padres are in the same division.
Only one of them can win the division.
Only one of them can win the division. Obviously, the other one's going to get a wild card in the National League. But they have to play each other a lot. So the saying iron sharpens iron. That's going to be what happens with this. I think no matter who ends up going further in the playoffs from that division, they're just going to have consistently played against better competition than anyone else in the league.
Hot take: I think the Padres take the division.
Not a hot take because they're so good, but hot take because the Dodgers are so good.
Exactly.
They could. I think the Padres are going to be better longer from this standpoint forward. Obviously, if you're counting the Dodgers winning the World Series last year and their past 5 years of being on a World Series run, then Dodgers have the longevity. From 2020, March 3rd, 2020, the Padres are probably going to be better longer.
I think that also, as far as the media goes, it's going to be a way bigger of a deal when the Dodgers lose 3 games in a row or get swept in a series somehow than if the Padres do.
That is the thing with sports, is it's all market. Sports media is entirely based on the market at hand. And obviously I'm going back to personal experience that I know. You see this in the White Sox Cubs. Obviously the Cubs over the last 10 years have been better than the Sox have. I'll admit that.
But they're a way more marketable
even though
team.
Head-to-head, the record might not show that. But
they're
such a more marketable team. And especially with the no cap limit in baseball, players want to go to the big markets that can pay them more. Media wants to pay attention to the big markets where their viewership is increased. So, similar to the White Sox-Cubs situation, Sox are always known as the little brother of the Cubs. You'll see that same thing. In LA, of course, there's going to be more media attention towards the Dodgers, more stress on everything that they do than in San Diego, the Padres, a team who hasn't always been this huge name. in baseball.
Yeah, for sure. And it's like that across
all sports.
Across all sports. You have
sports.
Like the Knicks. The Knicks are terrible. Or not now, but the Knicks for the past several years have been
terrible.
Terrible. And year in, year out, when that Forbes list of the most valuable franchises comes out, the Knicks are in the top 5 solely based on the fact that they play in New York.
They are the New York team.
Yeah. Like, no one cares about the Nets in terms of value because this, like, Brooklyn in general, like the area, just isn't as marketable as New York.
Not to mention that they used to be the New Jersey Nets, so that just like was also like didn't give them a very good head start over the Knicks
because they're in New Jersey.
You also see that with like the Jets. Like, obviously everyone knows the Jets are bad, but like think of how much media attention they get and stuff. They're not the most valuable team in football, of course, but like New York team, everyone's going to be talking about it no matter what. That's why everyone knows sort of how bad they are, because even if you're talking bad about them, you're talking about them, which is drawing views for every Jet fan.
Yeah, and it's crazy because you could argue that the Jaguars were worse than the Jets this year.
Yeah.
But the only time the Jags were really mentioned throughout the entire season was when they won their first game against the Colts, which was kind of like it was a good game too, a very high scoring game. And then no one talked about them for the rest of the season, in which they lost all their games until they clinched the number 1 pick to get Trevor Lawrence.
I was going to say, the only reason people started talking about the Jags was because of the Jets winning that one game or 2 games in a row that they won, which put them at the 2 spot.
Yeah.
That's the only reason the Jags became relevant towards the end.
Like, no one was like, people were saying, they were still talking bad about the Jets because they were like, oh, they can't even lose correctly because they didn't get the number 1 pick. But no one was even talking about how bad the Jags were because they didn't even have a shot in half their games.
Right.
They were playing their 3rd string against the Packers, and it was like they were just going to get smacked.
Exactly. So that little side note there about, just how markets work and stuff. But, yeah, the bigger markets are always the ones getting attention, no matter if the team's good or bad. And that's just the way that it is. That's always the team that's going to be spending more money. That's always the team that's going to be getting higher interest players because they're the one that everybody wants to play for.
Yeah, and rarely do we see a team shift from small market to big market. In recent history, the only teams I can think of that's happened to is 2 basketball teams, Golden State and Milwaukee.
Yeah.
Both of those teams, Golden State even, they had like the I Believe era, I think it was called, when they had Steven Jackson, Jason Richardson, that squad.
Yep.
Back then, like in the Bay in general, like that area is very, like they all like rock with the A's and the Warriors, no matter what. Like
A's,
that,
Warriors, and Niners.
Yeah, that area is very, like no matter what, they're going to stick with their team. Like they can be terrible. Like the Warriors were terrible, but they were selling out games,
right?
Just because like the area and stuff. And then I think that's like the only way that you can shift from a small market team to a big market team like they are now. Even though like they might not be as good as when they had like the Big Four and they had like that dynasty and stuff. But I think that now they're recognized as a large market because of that growth from being a bad team that was still selling out games to being good.
And that's why that is never going to happen for a team like the White Sox. There's not many in the Sox position, but when you're splitting a city, you're never going to get the entire market of that city. And obviously the Cubs are and will forever be the more popular team. They're going to be the ones getting the market. So something like that where they have the most dedicated fans isn't going to spring them into the next big market, because if you don't take Chicago, you take like just the sample that is White Sox fans. I mean, I don't know the actual numbers or statistics, but my guess would be they're somewhere like in the Milwaukee range of like viewership. You know what I mean? Or like market. Just interesting.
Yeah. It's a little.
Again, speaking about our wanting to get viewership, we're talking about mostly Chicago people here, Sox and Cubs. MLB Network put out their top 100 players a couple weeks ago.
Oh, I saw this.
Yeah, it was interesting. Sox had the most players out of all teams. They had 9, but their highest player was only at 27. So sort of shows depth, but no one's even in the top quarter. You know what I mean? And then the Cubs had 5 players in the top 100. Their highest was 43. I think that was Anthony Rizzo. Respect. Fair. Respect. Javi Baez, I think, was down like around 55 or 60.
That's crazy.
But yeah, so just more baseball stuff to talk about.
Yeah, I mean,
both teams are looking like they're going to have an interesting year in contrast to what we've experienced the last 5 years with them. I think the Sox are looking to take that step up from the bad team they've been, and the Cubs are looking like they're on the decline, although they've won their last 2 spring training games, so who knows? The Cubs are the Cubs. They could pull something out. I'm not going to hate on them. They play in the NL Central, and they have a shot.
And, the Sox have always been, not always, but, for the past while, have been that team that is like 2, 3, 4 years away. You look at that team and say, 4 years from now, they're going to be real contenders, We were
saying 2020 in 2016, and 2020 came, and it wasn't our year, and we were still a year away.
Yeah, but I'll speak on behalf of Sox fans here. We're tired of hearing that. I think that it's finally time for the young players on the team to start actually living up to their potential, overperforming a little bit maybe, because the team is a little bit rounded out their average, I'd say, at least in everything, at least average.
Andrew Vaughn hit a 3-run homer yesterday.
Andrew Vaughn's going to be sick.
Andrew Vaughn, who has not played a major league game until spring training,
he's going to be
hit
sick.
A 3-run homer yesterday, and I'm so excited to see him.
Yeah, the past couple of years, it's always been hype around the prospects, the young players. We love seeing them just come into the league and maybe struggle a little bit at first, but we know they're going to be something. Luis Robert last year, was crazy. Yes. At one point, he was a leadoff hitter. He eventually dropped down in the rotation a little bit, but in first year up. Be like that.
And the exact inverse of that is the Chicago Cubs. Obviously, if we're going to talk Sox, I feel like we should talk Cubs, even though I don't know much about them, if I'm being completely honest here. But the complete inverse of that is the Cubs. We're talking about Sox. We're always focusing on their prospects. The entire time the Sox are talking about their prospects, 1, the Cubs won the World Series, and 2, they've been maintaining their top guys. Obviously, they lost Schwarber, as we talked about earlier this year. He went somewhere else. I forgot exactly where. Not this year, this episode. But they still have Javi. They still have Rizzo. There was talks of Bryant going to the Mets that got really, really close to the point where even he thought he was traded. I think there was a text message sent. Something like that. Funny story that I heard.
Something like that.
But they still have Bryant. So all those 3 guys, basically, their core from the 2016 World Series team, they all had an off year last year. If you look at the numbers, none of them were hitting what they normally do. None of them were fielding exactly what they normally do. If they can have sort of a comeback year where all of them are like, all right, we have a couple more years here, with all these guys together, even one more year, let's ball out. They could still be a very good team. They have guys who have proven potential and have proven that they are very successful winners. Just we didn't see it last year. I don't know if it was, 60-game season, shortens everything gets thrown off, but I would say don't count the Cubs out yet. Right now, my favorite for the NL Central is the Brewers. But I think the NL Central is going to be pretty close between the Cubs, Brewers, and Cardinals. And if the Cubs' main guys have a comeback year, I don't see any reason why we should be counting them out.
Yeah, the Sox are a team that's all right, pretty good, and they got to get up to that next level. The Cubs were at that level. Yeah. Kind of fell off a little bit these past couple years, but can so easily just get right back into that, winning the division conversation, even contending for the NL conversation.
Yeah.
It's going to be an interesting year, for sure.
Very interesting year.
What else we got today?
We've touched mostly on baseball and March Madness so far. I know we talked about it a lot last week, but there's a little bit of football news. Won't go too long, probably.
Yeah.
And that's basically just 2 main players that have come out in off-season talks. J.J. Watt to the Cardinals.
Big move.
And Russell Wilson has dropped a bombshell. So I'll let you take your pick on which one you want to talk about first.
I'm going to start with J.J. Watt because I think it brings up an interesting conversation about the Cardinals.
I agree.
With J.J. Watt signing with the Cardinals now, 2 years, $31 million, $23 million guaranteed. Pretty hefty deal. Do the Cardinals now become a team that veteran players try to ring chase to?
I don't know if they're a ring chasing team, but I think they are contenders.
I think they become.
And I say that cautiously.
I think they become an attractive spot.
I think they become attractive, but I don't know if they're set. I say if you're talking ring chasing, I would say Chiefs, Bucks, Packers are ring chasing teams. I don't know if it's ring chasing to go to the Cardinals quite yet.
But you know what you're in for.
You know what you're in for. Obviously, last year they didn't even have a playoff appearance. But they were a win or two away from taking the division.
It was a crazy division
which is crazy.
Last year.
It was them, Seahawks, 49ers, and someone else. Chargers, I think.
Yeah.
But obviously, the addition of J.J. Watt is interesting because at this point in his career, the question is, are you paying because he's one of the most elite defensive linemen out there, or are you paying because he's J.J. Watt?
You're saying, does he still got it?
Does he still got it? I don't want to use the word washed because I love J.J. Watt. But is he outgrown his prime? Is he worth the $23 million over 2 years that he's guaranteed, the $30 million that he's potential to get?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see.
I think the Cardinals are now going to be one of the top two in that division, especially if Wilson is gone, because that completely changes the landscape of that division.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I like the Cardinals. Kyler Murray is great. DeAndre Hopkins is great. Yeah. J.J. Watt, if I'm wrong and you're paying for the skill that he's giving you, at least the mentorship ability, if they can,
And it's not like he's carrying the entire load in that D-line either. You still have Chandler Jones. You still have Hassan Riddick, who there's that one game against the Giants. He had like 5 sacks in a game.
Exactly.
I think for the Cardinals, it all comes down to can they solidify that offensive line a little bit. Kyler Murray was, he was scrambling a lot. Obviously, he's making plays, but that's because he's Kyler Murray. If they can protect him a little bit better, and if they can round out that defense, I know that Patrick Peterson might be leaving the team, but they could easily sign some guys who say, J.J. Watt, Chandler Jones, a lot of big players on that team. I can fill in one of their like niche spots that they need to make this team a contender. There's going to be a lot of. Have you heard about this thing with the cap space, bro?
I've heard about the Saints thing with the cap space, but I don't know anything about the Cardinals.
So usually the trend is that year after year, the cap goes up a little bit. Mm-hmm. This year, a lot of leagues obviously aren't making as much money.
Right.
The NBA lost something like $1 billion in the bubble. Teams are losing money. They're not obviously not able to sell tickets, stuff like that. The cap had a lot of reports. Ian Rappaport, a lot of ESPN people. The cap is either going to plateau for these next couple years or it's going to go down. You saw that Kyle Van Noy got dropped today or yesterday by the Dolphins. Last year he signed a 4-year, $50 million deal with them, I think. He had a great year. Had like 6 sacks, a lot of tackles. He's a good vet. He had all those good years with the Patriots. They cut him yesterday to save like $10 million cap space. Yeah,
that's crazy.
Within the next week or so, it's very possible that a lot of vets and kind of like bigger name, big contract, past their prime though players get cut just because of the cap space.
Because they can't afford to pay for that.
The cap is taking a big hit this year.
That doesn't surprise me. I didn't actually know that, but that makes sense given everything that happened to not being able to have fans and stands and stuff like that. No ticket value coming in. It makes sense.
It's the same reason why Kyle Rudolph got cut.
Yeah.
Today or yesterday.
Something like that.
They signed him to like a 4-year big deal right after drafting Irv Smith too. Mm-hmm. And they cut him.
Yeah.
Because they first asked him to take a pay cut, which I feel like if you're the Vikings and there's any player you can ask to take a pay cut, it's probably Kyle Rudolph. But there's going to be a lot of teams. Yeah, there are going to be some interesting players that might just get dropped out of nowhere. Carlos Dunlap, he got traded to the Seahawks last year. They can save like $15 million if they cut him. So it's going to be interesting to see because a lot of those like older players that maybe haven't played as well in recent years, teams are going to take a long, hard look at those contracts and see if they're really worth it.
Interesting. I didn't know that. Hopefully next week or the following episode we'll have some pretty good conversation to have then if we're talking about a lot of people getting dropped.
Mm-hmm. Couple last things. A lot of players in talks for franchise tags. One of them is Aaron Jones. which is kind of a weird thought because the GM said today that they were like, the Packers, like, we're not a team that uses the franchise tag a lot,
Right.
which they aren't.
No.
And he was saying, like, if we need to use the franchise tag on Aaron Jones, that's something we would consider. Sounded a lot like they might try not to keep Aaron Jones because he's going to ask for a lot of money, and the franchise tag is a lot of money too.
Mm-hmm.
But they do have a couple good backs behind him. You know, A.J. Dillon, who's a big guy. And they had a couple other guys step in and make some plays when he was out. Back to our beloved Chicago Bears, Ryan Pace said that they asked him about potentially franchise tagging Allen Robinson.
Yeah.
He said that, we're going to use our franchise tag on our good players, and Allen Robinson is one of our good players. So kind of like the opposite of what the Packers GM was saying, like kind of alluding to the fact that maybe they don't keep Aaron Jones.
Right.
He's kind of alluding to the fact that they're hopefully going to franchise tag Allen Robinson.
Right.
Which, please franchise tag Allen Robinson.
If you're going to franchise tag Allen Robinson, win the Super Bowl next year.
I mean, why would they let him walk, though?
I don't know.
Because the Bears, like we've said before, they're not a tanking team.
That's exactly what I'm saying. We'll get into that with the Russell Wilson debate, but
that's a whole different thing.
It's a whole different
That could be
thing.
its own episode. That could be its own episode.
If I had an entire episode to talk about the faults of the Chicago Bears, I might need more than just one.
Probably be our longest episode yet.
It would be our longest episode yet, and we reached an hour 8 last week.
Yeah.
Real quick, Russell Wilson, because there is stuff to talk about, but there's not a whole lot to talk about. He just dropped a bombshell saying, basically, he did not request a trade from the Seahawks. He didn't say that he wants to leave outwardly, but he said if he were to be given the opportunity to leave, he would take it for only the Raiders, Cowboys, Saints, and Bears.
A lot of hypotheticals there. I think that they were kind of, him and his team, I guess, were kind of using that more as leverage because
I agree.
He definitely voiced his dismay with how well he's been protected this year.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only going to get worse because he's in a division where he's constantly getting chased by the Bosa brothers, Chandler Jones, and now you add J.J. Watt to that division.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very tough division to play in as a quarterback because you got a lot of good defenses.
I think we're down. A while ago we said the Chargers were in that division. I think it's the Rams.
The Rams. It is the Rams.
It is the Rams.
Okay, so Aaron Donald.
That's exactly what made me think of that.
Aaron Donald. A lot of good defenses because the Rams were also like top 3 pass defense last year. Maybe the best.
Yeah.
You got a lot of tough defenses, and Russell Wilson is a great quarterback. He has one of the best deep balls in the league for sure. Definitely put that on display this year with DK Metcalf playing very well.
Oh, yeah.
But he's a quarterback that you need. Like, he can run too, but you need to give him that extra couple seconds.
Mm-hmm.
And that's only going to work if you really commit to the O-line. Maybe try to retool the defense a little bit because they had a pretty bad defense. But I think their number one priority should be keeping Russ happy.
And for the reasons you just said, why on earth were the Bears on his list? I have them listed here from my most likely and least likely of those places of where he might end up. Bears are bottom. Because I know there's Russell Wilson is he really likes to build his legacy. He wants to be like that guy. Obviously being the savior of the Bears franchise would up his value insane.
Oh, for sure.
But it's not possible. The Bears right now, one quarterback is not possible to save a franchise. I think, of all those places, Saints makes most sense, given that they're most likely losing Drew Brees.
That's another conversation.
That is another conversation. I know he's been working out.
Drew Brees is posting workout videos.
He's been working out.
Talking to Jameis.
Look like he wants to come back. But if he doesn't, because he did allude to the fact last year that it was the end, I think the Saints are the perfect place for Russell. They would not skip a beat in terms of franchise arc. They'd be this really good team. Losing Drew Brees would not affect them at all. It'd just be Russell Wilson the whole way.
And if I'm the Saints, I think Russell Wilson's a step up. I think Drew Brees.
Yeah,
especially
Drew Brees is
especially
old,
showed in the playoffs this year.
Yeah,
showed in the playoffs this year. I think he's lost it. He's a little lost.
I mean, yeah,
just a little bit.
The only quarterback that's old and isn't at least a little washed
is the GOAT Tom Brady.
And Aaron Rodgers. I'll give him his credit. He won MVP.
Whatever.
But we don't talk about him.
But yeah, the Saints. It's gonna be interesting to see. Do they? If Drew Brees says, "Hey, I got another year in me," do the Saints look at him and say, "No"?
Well, you were talking about cap earlier. The Saints are in the biggest cap deficit of any team in the league by a lot. The Saints are in trouble. So
financial trouble.
Like they might have to just sell the franchise.
They might have to cut everybody.
If they were to try to re-sign Drew Brees, he would have to go at the veterans minimum, and that's it. Like, no question, and sell people.
He would have to be on a for the love of the game and like for the love of NOLA type contract.
Which, now that I think about it, might make it hard for them to get Russell Wilson.
He's owed a lot of money.
They
would have to give up a big player to get him. It
would have to be like a player for player trade.
It would have to be a couple players.
Like couple players for player trade, but like they'd have to get rid of cap via players to get Russell. They couldn't just pick him up and pay him.
They could. That's gonna be an interesting thing to see. A lot of.
I don't think he's leaving the Seahawks quite yet. I think he's got.
I think it's a lot of. I think it's been exaggerated a little bit because the offseason so far has been a little bit dry.
Yep.
But that is an interesting storyline to follow. Same with the Watson saga. A lot of things left to be resolved, I guess, in the NFL. You got a lot of quarterbacks that are going to potentially be on the move. The draft's coming up. But yeah, we're all here for it.
We're all here for it.
It's going to be a great month.
We'll be here every week to keep you updated and talk about it.
It's going to be a great month. NFL season's going to off season's going to wrap up. March,
and
obviously.
Keep in mind, it is March.
It is March.
The greatest month in sports.
The University of Illinois is going to win the Natty this year. I'm calling it right now. If we had a board right here, I would just write it all across the board.
I hope you didn't make. I hope I didn't make it seem like I didn't like you if I had to win the Natty, because I think they're one of the best teams in the country. Great shot at the Natty, but I just had to get other names out there.
No, for sure. It's gonna be not gonna be a lot of blowouts this year in the tourney. I don't think across the board.
I think like the 1 through 4 seeds are like significantly better than like the seeds below it. But I think once you get to like the meat of the tournament, like the best teams left, I think it's going to be close games all throughout.
Once you get to that Sweet 16, every game is going to be a real toss-up, I feel like.
Yeah.
For sure. That's what we got.
I think that's all we got. No flags being thrown this week.
Yeah. I was close.
You were close when I brought up Villanova.
I was close with that Villanova crate take. I was just looking at the flag in my hand. I was like,
just got to spread. Big Ten's the best.
Got to share the love.
Got to share the love.
You know,
Big Ten's the best conference.
When there's good teams, you got to show love to the good teams.
Big 12, Big East, everyone gets their love on this podcast.
But yeah, I think this is a good place to call it.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you guys for watching. We'll be here next week. Hopefully, a little more will happen.
Yeah, it was a little dry.
But still some good conversation was happening.
Oh, for sure.
I feel like
we got 45 minutes in, so
yeah. Follow our Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. This is gonna be up on YouTube today, probably if we don't have another uploading issue. Out of Bounds on all those platforms.
Out of Bounds Pod.
Sorry. And yeah, we'll see you guys next week. Thank you guys for watching. Peace out.